Thank you so much for being here. And I want to just jump into our topic and I want to ask you this. Why should healing and transformation professionals write a book? Very important.
Well, I love that question because it's it's a question that many say, well, everything's been written before, and that's how I felt. I was a journalist, and I put EFT on the map in South Africa and the journey, and I began to find my life calling to help people break free from their inner blocks. And I thought I would love to write a book one day, but who am I? All the experts have written the books. And it was the best thing I ever did. Although I must say, my first book, which was about tapping, You Can Break Free Fast, I had to work through the fact that it felt like putting spilt toothpaste back into the tube. I knew too much. I thought, should I say that or that or that? So really, you need to simplify your first book at least, or boil it down into something that people can relate to. And if you've got a healing story, and if you don't mind, I'll share mine, which I put into the book, is that in midlife, having been in a 25-year marriage, which wasn't particularly happy, when my children grew up, I started to journal and pray and intend that somehow I could have a different life. And what happened was I had a fire, took my dog and my home. That same about that time in midlife. And
Wow.
that broke my heart open. And I didn't know what I was going to do with my life because, I was at that point where I went on a novena and I said, let me die or find me a reason for living. That's how I felt because I didn't have money. When I split up with my husband, there was no money and I was scared. And after this happened, I was in a lot of trauma. And I went to a chapel in Cape Town where I was living and I prayed on my knees. And then I picked up a book. I went to a bookshop, which always calmed me, picked up a book called The Journey by Brandon Bays and became her promoter. I thought I could bring her to South Africa. And she talked about healing a football sized tumor. And part of her process was forgiveness. And of course, we were at that time morphing from the old South Africa to the new South Africa with Nelson Mandela. And I knew there was a lot of healing going on, in the country, needed to be done. I'll just see, I've got it. So that was my call to be a healer. And as I said, to get back to the topic of a book, so I then began to promote people with books like Brandon Bays, like Byron Katie. And I loved doing that because I thought these people are, and then when the day came, obviously, to say, but you should write a book. And I thought, no, who am I to write a book? And so it's those old beliefs or those what I call a writer's block, which can come to anyone who's creative, that I had to overcome. And I did it by being a journalist, telling the stories of the people that I'd helped without revealing their names and everything. So every chapter of my first book told a story about one aspect of how I'd cleared someone's inner beliefs or, and there was some stunning, amazing. I don't know if healers and therapists sometimes find that grace, if you like, gives them an absolutely miraculous result from one of their clients, which absolutely turns them on the path, to realizing that this works. So
Right.
that happened to me, that was the time that came to write my book on tapping. Now, I'd always followed Dr. Joe Vitale. So I thought, if you can get someone famous to write the forward. So I did that. And he's written a forward of a few of my books. So that, in a way, I suppose, bolstered my confidence to put the book out there.
Mhm.
So the question you ask is why should anyone in the healing, modalities write a book in this days of AI? And I'm a great proponent of using AI as an assistant. But there's something about the people who've reached out to me, especially when I've read my book. Now, audiobooks are very, very powerful to do that. People like a podcast, people hear you reading your book. And the one that, funnily enough, I've often got people reaching out to me was when I wrote the book, Online Dating Success Secrets for Women 40, 50 Plus, How to Dump the Love Duds and Attract Your Love Hero. So that was that was a
Love it.
book that was one of those books that I was actually helping my friends. It was actually my first kind of book before I wrote the EFT tapping one, because so many of my friends were saying, I thought he was going to be the one and he isn't. And I myself went through 7 years or quite a few years of online dating where I would keep saying, this person is treating me like that. What about me treats myself like that? I knew enough inner work to use online dating as a test. So when I wrote that book, and I said, you've got to have a sense of humor about this online dating. And I help people in that book write the least wanted ad that you could ever want, and to post it there. And it makes you laugh. I want someone who's going to, invite his friends around and never help me. You can go on and on about a partner. And so that book, I basically, by the end of it, had not met the love of my life, who I now have been married to for 17 years. But it helped me clear the blocks and lighten myself and reach a point where I thought, if I never meet anyone again, I love myself. I'm going to marry myself, type of thing. And from that on, once I had that, and that's what I would recommend to people about coming to write a book. Clear the inner blocks, to do some of the, if you like, tapping work, or in my book, Bust Writer's Block, I mentioned havening. There are lots of ways you can remove your blocks. And then when you come to write it, you will have a calling card, if you like. You will have an authority making gift that, just holding a book in your hand. I've self published all my books, but just holding a hardback. I love the hardbacks. I always order one hardback,
Oh,
and
yeah.
holding that book in your hands is such a joy. And as I say, it has a spin off effect with your confidence. It has a spin off effect with attracting clients, yes, but also you can develop it into a course, and you can do a YouTube channel. Based on, if you want to focus. I see you focusing on your new book on reparenting,
Yeah.
and so people, for a while you're going to, and it's a season of your life. That's the other thing. You don't have to write everything you know and have ever done. But in this season of your life, you want to write about reparenting, and you know a lot about it, and it's helped you, and or narcissistic abuse, or whatever it is that you're working through at that time. And so that's what's wonderful. That book, I mean, I told you that the first book after online dating was the You Can Break Free Fast EFT tapping book. And I've forgotten some of those stories. I mean, that was 10, 12 years ago. And what's lovely about a book is it's actually there for you to go and refer to. And that's how I helped my husband, who was in his 70s, he is in his 70s, write his books, because he'd been I mean, he isn't a therapist, but he had all these sheets of paper from letters he used to write home when he was a consultant in the oil and gas industry, which is, by the way, how we met. He was in, it's a long story. But so I said to him one day, I love your humor, but wouldn't you like me to put those sheets of paper into a book? And so we did. We wrote his first book, True Expat, and the joy it gave him, it just is why I do this work, which moves me on to say that even if you don't have it in you to write a whole book, I'm offering EFT people, particularly,
Mhm.
to have a chapter in a book
Yeah.
that I will then help them write. And I'm going to, with that chapter, I will give a 6-part or 5-part formula each week. We will have a tapping, what I'm calling it, EFT tapping. No, not EFT tapping, an EFT writing party, where I will coach people through these blocks. And when I did one of my first courses on writing a book, I've got 6 different EFT tapping videos that, relate to the different blocks we have. I'm not good enough. Who wants to listen to me? And once we clear those blocks and just tell our story from the heart, and that's where you can't, AI can't drown your voice.
Mhm.
Only you have that story. Only I have that story about the fire and how it broke my heart, and how that broken heart helped me open to the world and myself as a healer.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if you can relate to that yourself about
I
writing
was,
your book.
yeah, I was gonna say that actually, I have discovered that what you just said is they're like writing the book has been for me has been really healing and triggering and given me an opportunity to see places in my being, in my inner child that still needed healing. And the idea of like unraveling something that you know really well, like when you have like something embodied, whether it's a technique or wisdom or whatever that is, and like trying to unravel it in a way and explain it to others who don't have any idea what it is yet
Yes.
is just really profound in and of itself. And yeah,
Yes.
I have discovered that for
Yeah,
sure.
that's exactly you go on your own inner journey when you write a book, especially in the beginning. Maybe, but every book I write, I go through some kind of having to encourage myself and, you know, say high five in the morning, you're going to be fine, carry on, even when you get despondent, because that's the other thing, you go through the messy middle. You might start off like that, and then like the chrysalis in the what's it, the butterfly and the chrysalis, you might just go through that messy time when, oh, this book, it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And if you push through that, and of course, do what Anne Lamott says is just write a shitty first draft, write something. And that's quite a good tip to give people. Because I used to have, I think there was someone else that maybe it was her, I used to put on my wall, just write the worst book in the whole world that's ever been written about this. And never mind. And just go ahead. And I've had to tell, because I've got a big inner critic, I don't, I won't just waltz in, even
Y'all.
though I was, yeah. And I think writers and creatives more than ever.
Hmm.
So,
Someone told me that once too, and I got some advice, and it was years ago. I've been trying to write a book for like 8 years, but they said just write it, but tell yourself I'm not going to publish it because I was terrified to write about it. Don't just tell yourself I'm not going to publish it. I'm just going to write it. And I did actually start that process, and I found it to be also really, really healing. And I did actually keep that promise for a while. I was like, I'm not going to publish it. And I'm glad I didn't because I ended up deciding that's not the topic I actually want my first book to be.
oh, you see, that's interesting. That's what we've got to allow for. That some kind of, you might just say, yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what you should have done or should do. What I would recommend people do. And if you do, and you will get stuck. Did you find you just reached a place where you said, I'm not going to write this, or I shouldn't write this, or forget it, I haven't got time. That's another one. Did you go through those? You go through these places of despair, despondency, or just boredom. I can't do this. But I like what Julia Cameron. I try and remember what she always tells us is that she lets it come through her. She lets the universal grace or whatever channel what needs to be said and come through you. And sometimes that takes your ego out of it. And especially if you just want to get a draft done, just okay, what needs to be done. And now, okay, I'm going to say it. We've got AI and ChatGPT. If you really get stuck and you know where you're going, you can say, look, I want an outline that will help me move this, forward. But you have to have your own stories and your own energy in your book. And that's more
Yeah.
like an assistant. Like you said, your wife edits the videos. So ChatGPT can do that as well if you get to know it and work with it in the right way. So those are the things why I think people should write a book. And more than ever now, people need your message, even though you don't know where it's going to land. You never know who's going to pick up your book, even in a secondhand bookshop one day. That's how I feel. When I've left this plane, maybe someone will find my book and it'll just give them the boost that they needed. That's how I sometimes feel.
I totally agree with that because it's this idea that like I've got so many books I've read from people who died before I was born, and they have changed my life in profound ways. And I did think that to myself. I'm like, wow, how cool would it be if I could write something that one day could help someone way after I'm gone, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And of
That
course, you at the youngest stage, but when you start going into your 50s and 60s, that becomes more of a reality. That becomes more of this legacy idea, leave the legacy. But on the other hand, you know, I mean, it's just one way of reframing, your your desire to write a book or to be creative.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions you think people would like to know
I,
about
I I
why they
think
should write a book?
actually because I will tell you that I think this is a good question. First, I'll tell you that I can say that if it hadn't have been for me learning how to use ChatGPT or other AI tools to write, I think I probably wouldn't be actually really close to having a book ready to publish right now because it may, like you said, it's just it can't speak for you, but
Mm,
it gets you going, you know? Like,
yes.
so I think a good question would be like, well, how do I use Chat GPT, for instance, to just like get me going? You know, just someone maybe who doesn't know how. What would be your
Well, funny you should ask that because in the last month or two, it's not a good model really, but I will take someone like you into a Zoom call, and I in 90 minutes I've got a coaching package that in 90 minutes I can help you hone in on what the book you should write and the title, the outline. But we use ChatGPT as we go. And that person then says, "Oh, yes." People come to me with 3 books, but because I've also got the skill set of a book coach, I can sort of ask them the questions, is that what about, what do you want to do with this book afterwards? What's the intention? Would you like people to reach out to you for, narcissistic abuse or for inner child healing? And then the person says, "Oh, okay, that." And then we work a bit with ChatGPT, and then so by the end they all say, "Oh God, this book is, I thought I would take years to write this book, but now thanks to you." And they've given me testimonies. I've got a title and a subtitle because ChatGPT gives you a few. I've got an outline, and sometimes they'll change it probably when they go away. I'm not even saying to them, "I'll then help you write the book." But I think that I call it the VIP Kickstart Your Book session.
Mhm.
And I get a lot of joy out of that because I see people leave inspired and, and ready to go and
So
really
there's like
being.
you're saying there's certain prompts and questions that you can ask Chat GPT and that like that can if you're able to focus in and say if someone had a session with you that like certain questions you ask are going to draw out the information that person needs to kind of get focused and move forward.
Correct. Well, okay, there's another part to that. I would like them beforehand to give me their website and some information about them that we put into ChatGPT,
Mhm.
so that we're directing it at someone who's got a website that says, I help people, women reparent after a difficult childhood, or I help children of alcoholics, or whatever. So so we could start with that, but they might say, "No, no, I've tried to delete all that from my life. I'm trying to go in this direction." So then we say, "Okay, we'll look at it on that path." So you see what I'm saying? I do have a free lead magnet that I give away with my book. I've written the book ChatGPT AI Book Writing Formula,
Mhm.
the 9 steps to prompt, write, and publish a nonfiction book assisted by AI. And in the book, and even now, I give people all the prompts that are in that book that I use to give examples. Because I'll say, let's say Mary is a weight loss coach. This is how ChatGPT might help her craft her book, provided she then puts in her own, things. So I do give those prompts away, but I think the joy for people, to have a whole lot of prompts is one thing, but to sit with someone who's listening to you, who's gauging what you really want to do in your book, why you want to write it, where you stuck maybe, and to liberate you to say, "Wow, okay." One of my first clients was actually a financial, um, I don't know what you call it in the finance world. I think he was an accountant or a tax accountant, and I thought, "Oh my word, I hope I can help him with his book." But at the end, you know what? We had a book series he's going to write, shorter, helpful books. We even put a cover, I even did a cover for him. Although I find that it's getting more difficult with ChatGPT when I'm on a call to just say, "Let's mock up a cover." But, he went away. He said, "This was absolutely fantastic." Even the fact that I've got the title of who I am and what I do. And so that's the interesting thing. I have to obviously use my intuition and my experience to tune into the person and help them where they want to write their book.
Yeah, that's just really, and that's just the power of coaching, right? That holding a space for someone, reflecting back and helping them just, refine what it is they're wanting. And that really that's different from say reading a book and getting some prompts, which is all just different levels of help. But
Yeah.
it's great that you do have different levels of help and if you have a book out there, that can help people with that. And I'll put the link to your book. Is it on, it's
Yeah,
Amazon? I can put the
yeah,
link.
yeah. But the thing is, it's for coaches, therapists, wellness experts, and entrepreneurs. I'm not trying to do big business people. I think so many people in the healing modalities, that first of all, they don't even know about ChatGPT, or they think it's something else, or B, they don't know how to write their books, as I say. And I've got 9 steps, which I had before I wrote, before ChatGPT came along. These are the 9 steps: get clear, get going, keep going. I sort of made it into 9 steps. And then when ChatGPT came along, I thought, no, my book on how to write a book is going to be outdated. Let me just jump in and learn all I can myself: how to use ChatGPT, how to train it to sound like me, how to find encouragement, what not to do. And there was one thing I did once in one of these books. I had to change it. Luckily, I self published. I asked ChatGPT to find me someone who used Havening, and she was a business person, a creative. And it gave me the name of someone that she'd been in an article in UK Home and Women in Home, that she worked from in England. So I didn't check it, and I put it in the book. And one day I got this. I didn't say anything bad about her. I just said there's this guy, this woman, this photographer, Nikki so and so, and she says Havening has changed her life. You know what Havening is? It's that
Yes, yes.
it's a self-soothing. And so she like you contacted me. She said, this is lies, lies. I've done a video on it actually. She said, I didn't say this. Who are you to say I said that? So then I went back to ChatGPT and I said, where did you get this? And it said, well, then I realized, yes, ChatGPT can lie. You've got to check everything.
You have
So
to
I,
check. It
so
says
I
it at the
told,
bottom. ChatGPT make mistakes.
but I never thought that was in the early days. I didn't realize that was in my bus ride. Anyway, so
Yeah,
I was honest with her. I said, look, I got it from ChatGPT, and I went back to the book and I took her out. Or I had to have some space, because that's when you self-publish, you can do that, you see.
yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, so that was an example. That then I later made it's one of my YouTube channel. ChatGPT lied to me. Oh,
Oh yeah. It's good,
yeah.
that's why we need experts like you to tell us about these things ahead of time so we don't make those mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So that's my bag. That's what I enjoy doing. I like a quick in and out with people. I like to see them break free. That's what I call my first therapy coaching with EFT. Break free fast. You can break free from something by working for an hour or two with someone. You can tap and talk and find your. The thing is, because I was trained in the journey, where there's NLP and hypnotherapy, when I came to tapping, I would still go back and use those inner child modalities, going back to the source of where things were set up, and then have a break free aha when a person realizes, oh my word, I see them saying, oh my word, that's a break free. And I'm still trying to do it with authors and their books, and, help people like that.
Oh, wonderful. Listen, I wonder, how can people get in touch with you if they might want to be a part of this book or just reach out to you in general?
Well, I'd like to say, find me on Facebook and direct message me, Caryl Westmore, and Caryl Westmore author, because I've got a girl success page. And otherwise, if you put my details, my website, carolwestmore.com, that's got a lot on everything I've done over the last 20 years, including EFT tapping and all my blogs. But the thing I'm going to ask you to really explain, or to showcase, from this interview, is how people can check out the co-author book that they could be in,
Mhm.
and have my coaching for 5 weeks, in which, by the end of which, I'm going to not only show them how to write a chapter in the book, but how to craft a tapping or an affirmation journal in their name to go with it. It's not that difficult to do. So
Nice.
they're getting a whole bundle for the price of one. They'll be in the book, which will be a global first and bestseller, I'm sure. They know how to make an Amazon bestseller. That's one of the things. And at the same time, I'm going to coach them. So it's not just come into my book, give me your money. It's you're going to be in these tapping, writing parties. You're going to learn everything I can teach you, including a bit about AI. And you're going to be, I'll make sure your chapter's ready for the book. and there you can talk about what you do and have a link. So that's where I'm at the moment.
What an amazing opportunity. And I really hope people take advantage of it because yeah, just the idea of writing a book is really overwhelming, period. But if you can just start with like, okay, one chapter and I get some help and support and I'm in a community, and I think that's an awesome opportunity. So I want to thank you so much for offering that and putting that together. Uh, I think it's amazing.
Thank you. And as I say, a lot of the people who have come forward, and there've been quite a few, I asked them, would you, are you actually thinking of writing your own book? And they all say yes, or not all. Many say yes. And then I know that's good. They'll do their chapter, maybe have a, little journal that they can sell, but also it'll give them the confidence to go on and write their book. Of which I suppose I could help. I could offer a coaching package, but at the moment I like to give people their wings to fly.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. And we hope to hear more from you in the future and see like what when this book is going to come out. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, and I, of course, would love to have you on my podcast, Write the Book Inside You, when yours reaches reaches the public, because it's also a
Absolutely.
topic after my own heart. Okay, thanks. Thanks
Yes,
for
look,
having me.
definitely see you there, and everyone just be on the lookout for that.
Okay,
Thanks.
bye.
Bye bye.